Captain James Mitchell had flown 18,427 hours without incident, 32 years in the cockpit, from Vietnam combat missions to peaceful commercial flights. At 52, he was the kind of pilot passengers felt safer knowing was in command. But on March 15, 2019, 8 minutes would test everything he'd learned in 3 decades. 8 minutes to save 143 strangers. 8 minutes during which his own son was dying 200 miles away. And James didn't know. Captain James Mitchell adjusts his headset as Flight 447 climbs through 12,000 feet. It's 2:34 p.m., Thursday afternoon. San Francisco to Seattle. Routine as breathing. He's made this flight 847 times. Beside him, First Officer David Chen reviews the flight plan. 26 years old, eager, competent. Reminds James of his own son, Marcus, also 26, working construction in Sacramento. "Weather looks good all the way, Captain," David says. "Call me James. No need for formalities." The Boeing 737 carries 143 passengers and 6 crew. Spring break travelers, business people, families. Row 12 has Sarah Chen, 8 months pregnant. Row 23 has the Morrison family, 3 kids under 10. Row 7 has elderly veteran Thomas Green, 79, flying to his granddaughter's wedding. At 14,000 feet, James hears it. A dull thud from the left engine, then vibration. Instruments flash warnings. "Left engine oil pressure dropping," David says, voice tight. James checks the gauges. Oil pressure at 15 psi and falling. Temperature rising. "This is bad. Execute engine failure checklist," James orders. The left engine shuts down. The 737 can fly on one engine, but they need to land soon. Portland is 25 minutes ahead, their best option. Portland Tower, this is Flight 447. We have engine failure. Requesting priority landing. Flight 447, cleared for emergency approach. Emergency services standing by. James makes the PA announcement, keeping his voice steady. "Folks, this is Captain Mitchell. We've shut down our left engine as a precaution. We're diverting to Portland. Should have you on the ground in about 20 minutes. He makes it sound routine. It's not. At 18,000 feet, James hears the second sound, a grinding noise from the right engine. The good engine. Right engine vibration increasing, David says, fear in his voice. James sees it immediately. Right engine oil pressure dropping, temperature climbing. The same failure pattern, both engines degrading simultaneously. Bad fuel batch or contamination, James says. Doesn't matter why, matters what we do. When the right engine goes, they'll have no power. A 737 becomes a 70-ton glider. They'll have maybe 8 minutes of controlled flight. James does the math. Portland is still 18 minutes away. They won't make it. The Columbia River, 12 miles ahead. Wide, relatively calm. Water landing. David, we're putting her in the river. The Columbia River. Yes. Start emergency landing checklist. Water ditching procedures. David's hands shake. Captain, neither have I. But we're going to do it together. Trust the training. James keys the radio. Portland Tower, Flight 447. Losing second engine. We cannot make the airport. Executing emergency water landing in Columbia River, approximately 12 miles east of Portland. Flight 447. Understand water landing. All emergency services redirected. Godspeed, Captain. James switches to cabin intercom. Maria, execute emergency landing procedures. Brace position. We're landing in the river in approximately 6 minutes. In the cabin, controlled chaos. Flight attendants move quickly, professionally. Remove sharp objects. Shoes off. Tighten seatbelts. Heads down. Stay down. Sarah Chen, 8 months pregnant, begins crying. The flight attendant holds her hand. The captain is very experienced. We're going to be okay. The Morrison kids are terrified. Their father pulls them close. It's like a water slide. We're going to splash down. Thomas Green, the 79-year-old veteran, closes his eyes. He's made peace with death long ago, but not today. Not if the captain has anything to say about it. James descends to 2,000 feet. The Columbia River stretches below, gray, blue, and wide. He picks his spot, a straight section, away from bridges. Flaps 30, James orders. Flaps 30, David confirms. Landing gear up. If we hit water with gear down, we cartwheel. Gear up and locked. The right engine is running on fumes now. Any second it will quit. James lines up with the river. He has one chance. The angle must be perfect. 12 degrees nose up. Tail touching first. At 800 feet, the right engine dies. Complete silence except for wind noise. The 7037 is now a glider weighing 70 tons, descending at 1,1200 feet per minute. We've got about 40 seconds, James says. David, look at me. You're going to be fine. I'm going to land this plane, but I need you to help me. Call out altitude. David nods. Yes, sir. 600 feet. The river rushing up. 500 feet, David calls. James adjusts the nose angle. 12 degrees. Hold it steady. 400 feet. In the cabin, 143 people are in brace position. Some praying, some crying, some silent. 300 feet. James thinks of his wife Linda, his daughter Emily, his son Marcus. He doesn't know that at this exact moment, 2:42 p.m., Marcus is lying on a construction site, bleeding from a fall. Doesn't know that Marcus has maybe 15 minutes before blood loss becomes fatal. 200 feet. Everything he's ever learned converges in this moment. 100 feet. Brace for impact. James shouts. 50 feet. The tail must hit first. 20 feet. 10 feet. Impact. The tail hits the water with tremendous force. Water sprays everywhere. The fuselage flexes but holds. The plane decelerates violently. James fights the controls. Keep the nose up. Don't let it dig in. The 737 slides across the water, throwing up massive walls of spray. 80 knots, 60 knots, 40 knots, 20 knots, 10 knots, 5 knots. Stop. Flight 447 floats in the Columbia River, intact, upright. Water is pouring in from stress cracks, but slowly. They have time. Evacuation. James shouts. Get everyone out. Emergency exits open. Inflatable slides deploy, doubling as rafts. Go, go, go. Maria shouts. Passengers scramble out. Sarah Chen is helped by 2 men. The Morrison family. All 5 make it to the slide. Thomas Green moves surprisingly fast. James and David move through the cabin, checking every row, every seat. No one left behind. Clear, David shouts. Clear, Maria confirms. James is the last to leave. He takes one look back, his plane, slowly sinking. But everyone got out. He jumps into the water. Within 8 minutes, Coast Guard helicopters arrive. Fishing boats rush to help. Every passenger is pulled from the water. Some hypothermic, some with minor injuries, but all alive. 143 passengers, 6 crew members, 149 souls, all saved. James stands on the riverbank, soaking wet, exhausted. Passengers approach him, crying, hugging him, thanking him. You saved my life. My children are alive because of you. A paramedic checks James. You're okay physically, Captain. Might want to sit down though. Adrenaline crash is coming. A Coast Guard officer offers his phone. Want to call your family? James dials Linda. Linda, it's me. I'm okay. There was an emergency, but everyone's safe. James, oh my God, it's on the news. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Everyone's fine. Listen, I need to stay here for debriefing, but I'll call you later. James, there's something. It's Marcus. James's heart stops. What about Marcus? He had an accident at the construction site. He fell. James, he's in surgery right now at Sacramento General. It's bad. How bad? Internal bleeding. Head trauma. They don't know if she can't finish. I need to get there. Now. The Coast Guard commander arranges transport. Helicopter to Portland Airport. Private medical plane to Sacramento. 30 minutes. During the flight, James learns more. Marcus fell 3 stories when scaffolding collapsed. Fractured skull. Ruptured spleen. Internal bleeding. He was in cardiac arrest twice. The same 8 minutes James spent gliding Flight 447 to the river, Marcus spent bleeding on concrete, waiting for paramedics. James lands in Sacramento at 4:53 p.m. A police car rushes him to the hospital. He bursts into the ICU waiting room, still in his wet pilot uniform. Linda is there with Emily, their daughter. Linda's face tells him everything. No, James says. No, no, no. He coded again 10 minutes ago. Linda whispers. They couldn't bring him back. James, he's gone. James collapses. Emily holds him. Linda holds him. The 3 of them, destroyed. A surgeon comes out. Mr. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Patel. I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. The injuries were too severe. Can I see him? They let him into the ICU room. Marcus lies there, peaceful. Machines turned off. James takes his son's hand. It's already growing cold. I'm sorry, James whispers. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I was saving people, and you were dying, and I didn't know. He stays there for an hour, just holding Marcus's hand. When James finally leaves, there are reporters in the hospital lobby. The hero pilot who saved 143 people. They want interviews. James walks past them without a word. What can he say? Yes, I saved 143 strangers, but my son died while I was doing it. The next days are a blur. Funeral arrangements, family arriving. James moves through it like a ghost. Meanwhile, the media celebrates him. Miracle on the Columbia. Hero pilot saves 149 lives. His photo is everywhere. The president calls to congratulate him. James doesn't care about any of it. Marcus's funeral is on March 19th. James gives the eulogy, but he can barely speak. My son was kind. He was funny. He worked hard. He called his mother every Sunday. He was supposed to bury me, not the other way around. After the service, Sarah Chen approaches him. The pregnant woman from Flight 4047. Captain Mitchell, I'm Sarah Chen. I was on your flight. I'm here because you saved me and my baby. We're alive because of you. And I heard about your son. I can't imagine your pain. But I wanted you to know, because you saved us, my daughter will be born. She'll have a life. That's because of you. James doesn't know how to respond. He's glad she's alive, but it doesn't bring Marcus back. Over the next weeks, James receives hundreds of letters from the passengers. Thomas Green writes, I was ready to die, but you gave me more time. I attended attended my granddaughter's wedding. I held my great-grandson for the first time. Thank you. The Morrison family sends a photo, all 5 of them smiling. Our family is whole because of you. David Chen writes, you showed me what it means to be a pilot. I've decided to stay in aviation. Every time I fly, I'll remember what you taught me. James reads every letter, but they don't ease the pain. Linda finds him one night, sitting in Marcus's old room. They want you to come back. The airline, when you're ready. I don't know if I can. James, what happened to Marcus wasn't your fault. I was 200 miles away, landing a plane in a river, while our son was dying. You were doing your job, saving lives. Marcus would be proud of you. Would he? 3 months pass. James hasn't flown. On June 15th, Sarah Chen gives birth. A healthy girl. She names her Michelle, after Mitchell. She sends James a photo. Captain, meet Michelle. She exists because you didn't give up. That same day, James receives a letter from Marcus's foreman. Captain Mitchell, I worked with your son. The day of the accident, Marcus was listening to the news on his phone. When he heard about Flight 447 landing in the Columbia River and that everyone survived, he cheered. He turned to me and said, that pilot is a badass. That's the kind of man I want to be. 10 minutes later, the scaffolding collapsed. Captain, your son's last conscious thought was admiration for you. He was proud of you. James reads this letter 5 times. Then he calls the airline. This is Captain Mitchell. I'm ready to come back. His first flight back is in July. San Francisco to Seattle. The same route. David Chen is his first officer again. Ready, Captain? David asks. Ready. Every flight, James thinks about Marcus. Every landing, he whispers, that one was for you, son. 2 years later, March 15, 2021, James attends a reunion. All the passengers and crew from Flight 447. They've erected a small memorial near the river, a plaque. On March 15, 2019, Captain James Mitchell and the crew of Flight 447 safely landed a disabled aircraft in the Columbia River. All 49 people aboard survived. They asked James to speak. 2 years ago, we had 8 minutes. 8 minutes to do the impossible, and we did it. All of you survived, but I want to be honest with you. While I was landing that plane, my son was dying. I didn't know it. I couldn't have done anything differently, but he died while I was saving you. The crowd is silent. For a long time I was angry. Why did I save 143 strangers but lose my own son? But I've come to understand something. My son Marcus heard about our emergency. In his last minutes, he watched the news coverage. He saw us land safely. And according to his foreman, Marcus was proud. That's the last thing he felt. Pride in his father. James's voice breaks. So every day you live, every birthday, every milestone, Marcus is part of that. Because his father saved you, you carry his legacy forward just by being alive. Sarah Chen stands up, holding 2-year-old Michelle. She walks to James and places the little girl's hand in his. She's alive because of you. When she's old enough, I'll tell her about the brave pilot and his brave son. Thomas Green struggles to his feet. Captain, I'm 81 now. Every day I've had since that landing is a gift. I've seen my great-grandchildren grow. That's because of you. One by one, the passengers approach James. They hug him. They thank him. They tell him stories of weddings, births, graduations, life. James listens to each one, and slowly, painfully, he begins to feel something he hasn't felt in 2 years. Peace, not happiness. The loss of Marcus will never stop hurting, but peace. That night, James visits Marcus's grave. Hey kid, went to the reunion today. All the people from Flight 447. They're doing well. Sarah's little girl is walking now. The Morrison kids are in school. That old veteran is still kicking. James sits on the grass. I miss you every day. I'd give anything to have you back, but I'm trying to do what you'd want. I'm flying. I'm living. I'm honoring your memory by being the kind of man you were proud of. The wind blows through the cemetery. I saved 143 people that day, but I lost you. I don't think life works like that. Balancing scales. Sometimes good and bad happen simultaneously, and we have to live with both. So that's what I'm doing. The pride of saving them. The pain of losing you. James stands, touches the headstone. I love you, Marcus. Always will. On March 15, 2024, 5 years after the incident, James retires. His last flight is San Francisco to Seattle. As they land, James looks out at the city. 5 years. 143 passengers are out there somewhere, living their lives. Sarah Chen's daughter Michelle is 5 years old, starting kindergarten. Thomas Green passed away last year at 83, peacefully, surrounded by family. They all got more time because of 8 minutes in March 2019. Marcus didn't. But Marcus gave James something in those final moments. Pride. And James has spent 5 years trying to be worthy of it. As James walks through the terminal for the last time in uniform, a man stops him. Captain Mitchell, I was on Flight 447, Seat 18B. You saved my life. What have you done with it? I got married, had a son, named him James. Actually, after you. James's eyes water. That's an honor. Thank you. James drives home to Linda. After dinner, he goes to Marcus's room. He pulls out the box of letters from Flight 417. Passengers. He reads them all again. Then he writes one more letter. To Marcus. Dear son, today I retired. 37 years of flying. Thousands of passengers delivered safely. But you're the one I couldn't save. I've spent 5 years asking why. I don't have an answer. Life isn't fair. Good and bad coexist. But every passenger I saved after you, I saved for you. Every smooth landing was my way of honoring your memory. I hope I've made you proud. I've tried. I love you. I miss you. And I carry you with me every day. Your father always, Dad.
James folds the letter and places it in the box. Then he goes to bed. He dreams of flying, of Marcus in the co-pilot seat, smiling. "Nice landing, Dad. Thanks, son." And for 8 minutes, in the dream, they fly together. No emergencies, no tragedy, just a father and son, flying through clear skies. 8 minutes of peace. When James wakes, his face is wet with tears, but he's smiling, because for 8 minutes, whether saving 143 souls or dreaming of his son, Captain James Mitchell did exactly what he was meant to do. He flew.